Okay, in this video I'd like to animate this robot and make it walk. To the right of my screen I have a walking cycle, and this is just half of the cycle. The front leg is starting at the back and moves forward, so we need to reverse what happens by the end of the animation. So we'll be doing that in this video. So I'm going to start on frame 2. Okay, I'm going to grab this lower IK handle and create a keyframe at frame 2, and I just want to mimic what the position of this first graphic is. So the easiest way to do this would be to go into a side view. Remember to keep your model on the origin, just makes things a bit easier. So we're going to copy this position, so bring in the leg back and up a little bit. Okay, that's about right. This is a keyframe, hit the keyframe button, and I also want to grab the bone itself, so the joint, this joint. I want to keyframe this as well and rotate it downwards a tad and making sure it's touching the origin. Okay, that's fine, keyframe. And this is the position of the leg. Okay, we're going to worry about the arms a bit later. We're going to do legs firstly. So I'm just looking, see if it's okay. Okay, moving on to the back leg now. Keeping in mind the position of this character on the first frame. The back leg is going forward a tad and slightly bent, like so. I think that would be okay. Just zoom in. Okay, so keyframe, boom. And the last thing would be the joint. So grabbing this joint, bringing it down, so it's got to be a bit flat, I think. Keyframing it. Going back to the IK handle, just going to bring it down. Just going to bring this down a tad. And I think that'll be okay. Because this foot is not touching the origin, I'm just going to rotate it a bit more. Like so. Okay, I always remember to keyframe it afterwards, keep in mind. Okay, so looking at the top view, I might want to bring this inwards. Okay, don't want it to stick out too much. Okay, so this is a good position now. Cool, so this is the same position as graphic 1. Let's move on to graphic 2. Graphic 2 is a bit is similar, but this needs now bending upwards and this is more straight. So I'm going to go 4 frames ahead, so I'm going to left click and drag to frame 6. This time I'm going to grab this and bring it up. Okay, that looks about right. So this joint is not moving much to the knee, then it just bends upwards. Keyframe, grabbing the joint, rotating this time. Let's rotate this way a bit, I think. Right, that'll do. Keyframe, boom. Moving on to this leg, the right leg. This time the leg is a bit straighter, I think, so I'm just going to move it down like this. Not too straight. Okay, keyframe, grabbing the joint, and this is what animation is in Maya, unless you have a motion capturing studio, but the chances are this is how you're going to animate. Keyframe, so we've done 2 out of 5 now. 4 frames later, 7, 8, 9, 10. Key it, just so we know. Again, let's look at the position of the character. This time the knee's bending outwards a bit. So let's grab this IK handle, bring it forward a tad, and bringing it down, like so. Keyframe, grabbing the joint. Now let's see the rotation of the foot. It's kind of similar. Okay, so as we can see on the next frame, the foot is lifting upwards now, so we could maybe just lift it upwards a little bit. Just going to see the rotation of that, actually just going to straighten it out a bit. Okay, keyframe. I'm going to go back to frame 6 and seeing if this foot is straight. It's not really straight, I'm just going to straighten it out. Keyframe and frame 2, and just going to move it across. Cool. So I'm going to just scrub through the timeline and as you can see, the character is moving ever so slightly. Okay, back to frame 10. Let's concentrate on the right leg. Frame 10, so the leg is pretty much straight. Let's move it down. Okay, keyframe. This can move. Okay, so kind of moving upwards a bit. So the foot's kind of flat. Boom, keyframe. Right, 4 frames later. We'll see if the speed is correct in Unity after we've done this. So 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. The front leg is now facing outwards in front of the character. So this is a bit too much. Let's just mimic the graphic as much as we can. Okay, so that's about right. Keyframe. Selecting the joint, rotating upwards a little bit now. Might be easier in this frame. So as you can see, the foot's pointing upwards a bit now. Keyframe. Back leg. The back leg's going backwards. Zoom out. Look at the whole structure of the leg. It's quite straight still. Okay, so I'm going to bring it up a little bit and back, and then grab the joint and rotate it downwards. Just a little bit. Okay, frame 18, the last sequence of the walk, and this time the front leg is right out, so I'm going to grab it like so, bring it out. If anything it's too much, so I'm just going to bring it in and downwards. Okay, kind of like that. That's good. So keyframe. This time the foot can go down a bit. I'm just going to do in this viewport. Okay, back leg. The back leg can go out a bit more. Keyframe. Grabbing the joint, rotating downwards a bit. Keyframe. Okay, so we're halfway through this animation now. I'm going to scroll through, see what it's like. Cool, so we're walking, that's really good. So we've gone to the end of this cycle now. All we have to do now is the same thing, but swap the legs around. So as you can see, right at the end, the front leg is out, but on this one, the back leg is out. So we need to just switch the legs around and start again from the beginning and just go through it one more time. So frame 22. Grabbing the front leg. So this time we're referencing the back leg for the front leg. Okay, keep that in mind. This is only half of the animation in my reference image. So let's look at the back leg this time. It's kind of poking out a bit. Just going to bring it down. Okay, so keyframe, grabbing the joint, rotating down, so it's touching the origin, kind of. Keyframe. Let's move on to the back leg. So this time we're referencing the front leg, so the front leg's backwards. Nearly in the same position. Might want to bend the leg a little bit, like so, just bend it. Okay, so keyframe, rotating the joint, so you might want to rotate a little bit. Boom. 4 frames later, 26. This image now, so the back leg's now the front, let's keep that in mind. And this time it's nearly straight, so just going to straighten it up. Keyframe, joint, bringing it up so it's flat. Keyframe. Moving on to the back leg, which is now the front leg, so it's bending a tad. Move it up, back, matching the guide as best as we can, bringing it forward a bit. And I think that's about right, because as you can see, this knee is overlapping this one. I'm just trying to match it in this animation. Keyframe. Grabbing the joint. And as you can see, the foot is going to be lifted up, so I'm going to lift it up a tiny bit. Just a little bit. So 4 frames later, frame 30, let's reference the middle image. Okay, so the front leg is now the back leg. The back leg is straight, so we're just going to straighten this up. Keyframe. Joint can go up. Keyframe. Back leg. Now looking at the front leg, which is now bending, going forward, and putting it down a tiny bit, matching as much as we can. Keyframe. Rotating the foot to match. It's kind of coming up a tiny bit more. I don't want to mess around with that too much, so keyframe. Right, 2 more frames to go, so 34. Alright, going back to the front leg. Now referencing the back leg is straight, it's going backwards a little bit. Zoom out so we can see. Okay, I'm going to lift it up a tiny bit, bring it back a tiny bit. Keyframe. The joints. The foot is now more flat, so I'm just going to bring it upwards in the perspective. Okay, keyframe. Going to the back leg, which is now the front leg, and the front leg's facing forward a little bit, so going to bring it forward and down. I think that's about right, so keyframe. Okay, getting the joint. The foot is now facing upwards, so I'm just going to bring it up. Okay, just like that I think. Let's check what that looks like. Okay, I think that'll be okay for now. Keyframe. So 4 more frames, frame 38. Okay, and I believe this frame will be the same, almost the same as the first frame. So I'm just going to check this out, which is on frame 2. Boom. So I'm just going to copy frame 2, copy, go to frame 38, paste. So let's see what that's like. Alright, that's good. So I'm going to go to frame 2, grab the joint, copying, frame 38, pasting. And we're just going to do the same for this as well. Copy. Okay, just to make sure I always select the frame. 38, paste. Frame 2, grabbing the joint, copying, pasting in frame 38. Okay, so alright, let's go to a perspective view. Whoops. And now I'm going to just scrub through the timeline and test it. So okay, so the character seems to be walking in a good sequence. So let's test it from the front. Okay, that looks okay. Okay, so now I'm going to play it. As you can see, Maya plays it relatively quick. We could shorten the timeline to just show 38 frames. Boom. Or we could just change it from maybe 3 to 38. So we have a nice smooth walking animation now for the legs. Okay, let's move on to the arms. And what we should do here is make the first frame the T-pose of the character. So let's just key in these arms for the first frame. And for the first frame, I'm just going to go back and key in the first frame and just move the legs back to an original position. So keying it in. Okay, same thing for this leg. Just needs to be just a rough T pose for now, I think. Just keying this in, and also going to the feet, rotating upwards. And the other one. Okay. Just a rough T pose going on frame 1. And the rest of the frames have a normal animation. So with these arms, I'm just going to go to frame 38. We're going to copy, just like we did with the legs, we're just going to copy this into the model as the timeline goes on. So I'm going to start at frame 2, I'm going to key this in straight away, and refer to the front arm. So this is my front arm. The front arm is almost at a right angle, so I'm just going to bring it down, like so, and go to the side view as well. So you just might want to go to shading, wireframe, might be a bit easier to see both the arms. Bring it in. Okay, so I think that would be fine. Just seeing the angle of the arm, bring it in a bit if we like, or even rotate it inwards. Just double checking the arm. Okay, that'd be fine. Keyframe. Going to the back arm now. Going to bring it down, in, and the back arm is behind the character, so almost in the right place. Bending a little bit. Okay, frame 2's done. Moving on to the second, the arm is going outwards a tiny bit, so this is my front arm. Let's get the things right. Moving inwards a tad, going down a bit. Keyframe. For the back arm, the back arm is still straight at the back. Just going inwards a tad. Just do it like this. Frame 10. Let's go to the back arm firstly. It's very straight on the character. Okay, same for the front arm. Can go inwards as well. And down. Key this in. I'm just going to double check this animation so far. Okay, so starting at frame 2. Okay, on frame 6, the back arm needs to come forward a bit. So I made that error there. So just bringing it forward. Key. So now we can see it just goes forward the arm. Okay. So frame 14, the fourth picture in the sequence, the front arm is beginning to go backwards now, so grabbing the front arm, back, like so. Might want to bring it up, bend it a tiny bit to make it look a bit more natural. Keyframe. The back arm is coming forward now, bending it like so. The elbow is still hidden in the body of the character, so I'm just going to bring it forward. Keyframe. 18 is the last one, so the front arm is straightening out the back. Key. Back arm is more like a right angle now. Might want to bring it forward a little bit. Key. So all we need to do now is swap the arms around and go through the sequence one more time. So the front is now the back. So the front is almost a right angle, so bringing it down a bit. Keyframe. The back is almost straight. Okay, keyframe. Frame 26. The front is the back now, so the back is beginning to go inwards again. Inwards, down. Okay, keyframe. The front one is now the back, so it's going inwards a little bit, in a bit more. Okay, so simple as that really. Frame 30, both the arms are in the middle of the character. Keyframe. going in the middle. Keyframe 34. The front arm is now the back, so the back one is beginning to go back a little bit more, so you might want to bend it a little bit. Keyframe. The front arm is now the back, which is bending inwards, so we can do it in the side of viewport, like so. Keyframe, and finally frame 38 should be the same as frame 2, so copying and paste for this one, also in the back arm as well, so frame 2, copy, paste. Let's scrub through and see what we have. So just seeing what we have so far. There's something wrong with this arm, so as you can see, boom, it's not moving as much as the front arm. So let's stop this, go back to frame 2. Just going to see what's been going on here. So in the middle it's frame 18. So at this point the back arm is not moving, but the front arm is moving quite a lot. So let's go to frame 6, refer to this, so the back arm is almost straight. Okay, so I think we moved the back arm in too quickly, so let's bring it back, keyframe, and then refer back to the frame 2, and frame 2, yep, the arm is way too much in there, so bring it back, bring it inward a tad. Cool, I'm going to copy frame 2, paste frame 38, so let's see what it's like now. Cool, that looks more natural. Just going to see it in the perspective. Playing. That's good. Maya does play back quite quickly. Just gonna. That's nice. So everything looks good in the side view, but in the if we're looking to the front of the character's not moving very much, as you can see. I just want to tweak the bones now to move the character a bit in the front view. The first bone is going to be the upper body. So in frame, let's go back to frame 1 actually. Remember to key the T pose. Moving on to frame 2. Okay, so this shoulder is now back, so I'm going to rotate the shoulders back a little bit, like so. Key it in. Go to when I think it's frame 18. Now this shoulder's facing backwards. We can then go rotate it like so. Boom. So this is about halfway through. So on frame 38, pasting it back. So let's see what that does, shall we? Playing now. So that looks a bit nicer. There's a really big movement going on with the shoulders, but this is moving the head. So now we need to deal with the head. So on frame 1, we get in the head joint, keyframe for the T pose. Frame 2 now to 38. So because the head is parented to this upper body joint, the head will move as well. So I'm going to rotate the head to face forward. Okay, so just like so, very roughly. On frame 18, I don't want the character facing away from the direction it's walking, so I'm just going to key it in. I'm going to copy frame 2 and paste on frame 38, so it gets back to the default position. So zooming out, let's go into a perspective, play. Let's just move it back a little bit. It's going to scrub through. Okay, so you might want to move it back a tiny bit more. So copying, pasting the keyframe, so it's moving inwards a bit more now. Cool, that looks good. Like, feel free to play with this to tweak the personality of your character. So just double checking the geometry. That's good. It's been rotated a bit now, so there might be some errors on the geometry, but everything looks fine. Okay, the next thing is that if we see on this sequence, the middle character is a bit taller than the rest of the characters, and to deal with this issue I'm going to play with this joint here, the lower body joint. So if we go back to frame 1, key in the T pose as usual, frame 2, I can maybe bring it down a tad, like so. And in the third image in the sequence, so it's not frame 2, 6, so that's frame 10, we can bring in this joint up a little bit, like so. So now the character looks taller. So I'm going to key that in. I'm going to copy this frame, the original position, on frame 18, pasting it in. And the next time this character is in this position is on frame 30. So we can go ahead and paste the frame in here. And then it goes back to frame 2, the original pose. So paste. Cool, let's see what we have now. Just going to play. Okay, so is the character getting taller? Yes. Cool, so that's looking good. If anything, this is moving up a bit too much, or this is moving down a bit too much. Just going to rotate, bring it down a tad. Copy. And going back to frame 30, pasting. Cool. So the last thing is this area, the hips. Okay, so we can grab this joint and rotate the character like so. And remember the golden rule on frame 1, the T-pose, key this in. On frame 2, this leg is going backwards, therefore we can grab this joint and rotate backwards a little bit. Okay, but because we haven't got an axis going on, we can just simply be very careful and rotate it like so. On frame 18, halfway through, now this leg is facing backwards. We can then rotate this like so. Just a little bit, key it, and on frame 38, paste. So let's see what we have now. I think this is the last thing I'd like to do. Okay, so it's a bit too obvious, that movement. Let's go to frame 38. Go back a bit in the center. Copy. Remember to paste things to the last frame. On frame 18 we can come inwards a bit more. So that didn't work out very well, but never mind. Cool, that looks pretty good. Looks good from a side, looks good from a front. We've got the shoulders moving, the hips moving a bit, so the character bobbing up and down as they move. And I think this is as much detail as we need in this game, so I'm going to turn on the texture, play it, see if my laptop can handle it. So the last thing I'd like to do is import this into Unity. So grab the model, go to File, Export Selection. I'm going to put it in my Models folder. I'm going to call it Female Character. And if you open up the Animation tab, we need to turn on Animation. We want to bake the animation, and I want to export frames 1 to 38. So 1 to 38, step 1, that's good. Okay, and these are the only options we need to worry about. Export selection. Warnings and errors, don't worry about this. And this is just to let us know the complex animation has been baked. So now we can open up Unity and see if it's any better than the first one I modelled. Okay, so I'm in Unity, and straight away I think this one's a lot better than my last one, even though I like this shape a bit better I think on this one. But make the scale factor 1 because I know it's going to be really small. Let's bring it in, and the actual whole shape of this character is a lot better than my first one. Okay, so bringing this inwards like so. Okay, I've got the texture in Unity, it's texture map 2, boom, and as you can see the normal issues have gone away completely now, so that's good. So we can select the female character and set up the animations. Our idle animation is 1 to 2, let's say. Wrap mode, default, that'd be fine. And walking animation is frame 2 to 38. Okay, so, well, considering frame 38 is exactly the same as frame 2, we can say 2 to 37. Wrap mode will be loop, and yep, looping and looping. Apply. So these animations are now saved in Unity. I can now select the robot in the scene and play the walking animation. I'm going to drag it on from the side, play automatically. Okay, so let's see if this works. Going over. Yeah, I think this animation's better than this one. I've got a script to make this walk forward. I'm going to bring it to this robot also and see what happens. Okay, so both of them are walking now. Which one do you think is better? Probably the one we just did. Okay, so it should, boom, this disappeared and going back. Okay, that looks pretty cool. If I can get the scrolling right, okay. Okay, so now we have a better model to play with in our game. So, in the next videos, I think I'll be playing around with the pathfinding system. I'll put this model in Unity chat later, and I'll post a video promoting it. So, thanks for watching the video, guys. I'll see you in the next video.